Well, good evening. I'm back at Faultline Park here in Salt Lake City to offer another Rio Grande Plan update, or maybe a lack of an update. Since the results of the 2024 presidential election came out, I've been getting lots of calls and texts and messages from many people who are concerned about the future of the Rio Grande Plan, thinking that now that Republicans have control of all the branches of the federal government, that the Rio Grande Plan doesn't stand a hope of being completed. This is based on the presumption that because President Biden in the last administration was able to provide funds for transit and stations, and particularly trains, whereas President Trump in his administration provided very minimal help and some considerable setbacks to certain projects, that the same pattern would follow with this new presidency. And my only update here is that no, the reports of the Rio Grande Plan's death have been greatly exaggerated. The plan is, for now, safe. The linchpin of the Rio Grande Plan efforts at the moment are the Reconnecting Communities study. This is a study that was funded by the Federal Department of Transportation to the tune of $2 million and has been matched in that same amount of money by Salt Lake City. This plan is funded, the study at least, and that means that it is safe from any future budget cuts. The contractor has been selected. It will be made public very soon, and starting next year there will be 2 years of a study, whereas the planners and engineers and community will come together and be able to talk about ways to reconnect the East-West divide. Now, once again, this is not a study for the Rio Grande Plan specifically. This is a study that wants to figure out what the best way is to reconnect the east and west sides of Salt Lake City by improving public transportation infrastructure. There are many ways that this could go. It could go with a small project of maybe building more pedestrian bridges. It could go with putting limits on the railroads to limit the amount of trains they run through so that the gates would be open longer. It might have to do with individual grade separations where underpasses or even overpasses are built in certain locations at specific strategic railroad crossings. But we at Via Rio Grande believe very strongly that the only way to heal the East-West divide is by doing 2 things. One is to bury the rails so that there are no more at-grade railroad crossings downtown. The second thing that needs to be done is that the space currently occupied by the railroad tracks, the enormous freight yards that take up around 50 acres between 600 West and the freeway, I-15, that is a huge dead space. It's an economic fire break. People will not travel across just because there's tracks, but also because it's a long way to go. It feels like a completely different city over there on the west side, or if you're on the west side, the east side feels like a completely different city. It's a major divide, not just the railroad trains causing disruptions through the crossings, but just because of the enormous amount of space that they occupy. Beyond 600 West, or just to the east of 600 West, there are the ramps from the viaducts and the bridges that come down. That is an extra block to this undesirable neighborhood between I-15 eastward into downtown. So you can imagine the whole space between 500 West and the west side of I-15 is this complete economic dead zone. There's only one way to solve that, and that is by moving the railroad tracks from where they are now into a different kind of structure. We believe that the Rio Grande Plan and its below-grade train box is the only way to solve this issue. We are very confident that if we get enough public support during this period of study in these 2 years, that the study will recommend the Rio Grande Plan as its preferred solution. Once that happens, it's a bit of a question mark, and it always was. The funding established by President Biden in the bipartisan infrastructure bill, that money runs out or will be spent probably by the time that this money, by the study is done. Which is to say that the federal infrastructure money that is out there now was never really going to be able to be applied to the Rio Grande Plan. It's just too far away in the future. But what the study does do is it establishes a precedent for federal support for a preferred solution. If the preferred solution is the Rio Grande Plan, ergo, the federally preferred solution for Salt Lake City would be the Rio Grande Plan. And that would be huge. That would be a way to justify Congress and others making special budget allocations. This could happen within the current or the future Trump administration, since that will last 4 years. one good thing about that is that the state of Utah is also controlled at basically every level by the same political party, the Republicans. And there are ways that political, not to say favoritism, but political alignment between the state and federal governments could result in funding happening, even though the Rio Grande Plan is a one-part transit project. It's also one-part real estate development, and this state's legislature has already shown that it likes redevelopment projects, at least in the form of the prison relocation and a few other places where they've opened up land that has been useful for them in creating more development opportunities in the state. The Rio Grande Plan is also a highway improvement project because it could have benefits for the freeway ramps entering into downtown Salt Lake City. Right now, those freeway ramps have the potential to get clogged at certain times. They're just out. They will be an outdated design. They're a quarter century old right now, 25-year-old design, and by the time the 2034 Olympics happen, they may need to be updated, and so that could be part of the plan. The Olympics coming in 2034 offers another justification for how to spend money on what is nominally a train project, even through Republican Party, which historically has not been super pro-transit and pro-passenger rail. All of this is to say that there are many reasons to still be very optimistic about the Rio Grande Plan. From my point of view, things really haven't changed from the funding perspective, because like I said before, the only thing that is really happening to push the plan forward now is already funded. That is the Reconnecting Communities study. So if you are interested in the Rio Grande Plan and being a supporter of it, you can contact us. You can help volunteer with us. If you don't want to volunteer or spend that much time, the best thing to do would be to pay attention to our social media channels and also to Salt Lake City. There will be times next year in 2025 and 2026 when the public is invited to participate in the Reconnecting Community Study. Your feedback will be critical, not just for saying we want the Rio Grande Plan as a solution, but defining what the actual problem is. The study wants to find out from the public what the biggest issues are. If you respond that the biggest issues are railroad crossings and abandoned industrial space, then you've shaped the study to, from the very beginning, to help prefer the Rio Grande Plan as a solution to your problem. I cannot iterate this enough. We need to be engaged in this study. And beyond that, whatever party is control, whatever funding the situation is, that does not matter if we don't get this study right. So to everyone who's a supporter of the Rio Grande Plan, focus right now on what we have before us. The Reconnecting Community Study is what matters. So I look forward to being involved with you then, and please pay attention to what's coming up. There's many good reasons to feel optimistic about the future. I'm Christian Lenhart. Thank you for watching.